Welcome back to the Big Book Project. Today is a special day for me. I'm joined by the person who's been responsible for the great majority of my purchases of novels over the last 3 years. My bookshelves are groaning, but I'm a very happy and satisfied reader for it. Stephen Moore is the author of 2 volumes on the history of the novel. He's a book reviewer, an essayist, editor, publisher, but more than anything else, I think he's the patron saint of novels and novelists, and of course, readers too. So welcome, Stephen.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that I'm actually encouraging to buy books. Some critics just write to, state their view, but I want people to buy the books that I'm enthusiastic about. So I'm delighted to hear that's having that effect on you.
You definitely have had that effect on me. I think that we like and appreciate some of the same types of novels and some of the novels that people that subscribe to the Big Book Project are kind of looking for as well. So I'm delighted to have you on, and we can talk about a few of those. But we're principally here today to talk about your new book. This is called Last Time Around, and it is a collection of essays, reviews, and interviews that have been compiled since your last book, My Back Pages, that did a little bit of the same for your previous work. And you call this new work, Last Time Around, a celebration of the 50th anniversary of your career. So I'm wondering if you could tell our listeners a little bit about that career, and also including, I guess, your time at Dalkey Archive Press, which you recounted in your book, Dalkey Days.
Okay, well, I went to college in the early 70s, planning on becoming a teacher, but I couldn't get a job after I graduated. So I started working in bookstores and doing miscellaneous stuff, and at that point, that's when I started writing criticism. I had been a big Joyce fan at an early age, and I loved reading Joyce criticism. And I thought, well, I want to join that club. I want to be one of those kind of people. So in 1976, actually 50 years ago, I published my first few pieces on Finnegan's Wake. I decided to start with something easy, so that's why I started with Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah, right.
And then I discovered William Gaddis in 1975, and The Recognitions, a huge 1,000-page novel of his. And I discovered hardly anything had been written about him. So I decided that instead of writing the 100th book on James Joyce, I would write the first book on William Gaddis. So I was really shocked that nothing had been written about him. It's a fantastic novel. I mean, one of the greatest, monuments of American literature. So anyway, I spent the next couple of years writing that and publishing an article on Gaddis, and opened up a bookstore and ran that for a few years. This is back before the big chain stores came along, so you could do something like that, a little 1,100 square foot store in Colorado. That's where I lived at the time. Then after I published my first book in 82, I decided to go back to grad school and get a PhD. I couldn't find originally I wanted to be a high school teacher, failed at that, couldn't find a job, so I thought, well, I'll try to be a college teacher. So, failed at that too. But during that time, I kept writing more criticism and publishing another book on Gaddis, and I wound up, I got my degree and my PhD in 1988, couldn't find a job, so John O'Brien asked me if he could join his Dalkey Archive Press, which at that time was basically just a one-man operation, or one man and a secretary. So, without having anything better to do, I went ahead and joined that. Not because I wanted to be a publisher, but just I really didn't know what else to do with myself. Although I really liked, it turned out nice, because I was able to reprint a lot of books that I really like, old out-of-print books like Marguerite Young, who we both adore, and
yes.
and then as well as some new writers. And so I did that until about 1996, and then I left, and I couldn't find. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I went back, worked in the book trade, and worked at the first Borders store that opened up in Colorado. I worked there for about 4 years, and transferred up to the Borders headquarters up here in Ann Arbor, which is where I'm living now. Stayed there until right before they went out of business. And I liked the town so much, I decided to stay here. So during that time, that long period, I started, writing. Let's see, I wrote other books. I began writing this big novel history in 2004. It took me about 8.5 years. Then since then, I've just been, writing other things and book reviews, articles, that kind of stuff all the way along. Because whatever job I had, whatever day job, was just to pay the rent. My vocation was always to be a writer, so that's how I've spent as much time as possible. But at this point, it's been 50 years now, and I'm starting to feel kind of all written out. I'll turn 75 in a few weeks, and just kind of tired. Feeling like my mojo is gone. I don't think I'm writing at the same level as I used to. So this is why it's called Last Time Around. This will probably be my last book. It's one final attempt to gather up all the things I want to preserve in book form. And so that's what this book is about. In addition to essays and reviews I've written over the last 10 years since the last collection that you mentioned, I also included about 8 or 9 interviews I've done over the years. So I thought they go off into different areas, and I figured I've done about 24 over the years, and I picked out some of the best ones to just kind of supplement the written stuff. And that brings us up to today, I think.
I think for decades you've been helping novelists, looking at their novels, sometimes editing. You're well known for having edited David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest. Are you still receiving novels from people these days?
Funny you should ask. About an hour and a half ago, someone asked me if they could send me his new 800-page novel. He said it's the kind of thing he thinks I might like. So, yeah. And earlier this year, another person sent me a novel that he had just written. Let's see, what's his name? Joseph Randolph. Huge novel that kind of takes off where Infinite Jest left off. And he asked me my opinion of it, and I gave it to him, and I gave him some suggestions for finding a publisher. He's trying to find a publisher now. So, yeah, I still get requests like that, and I do some pro bono work for some small presses, like Tough Poets Press, Sublimary Editions. I've been helping out Alexander Theroux get some of his books into print with, there's a new publisher called Red Fiend. So this is, like I said, mostly pro bono stuff. So yeah, I still hear from authors and try to help when I can. I don't really have any contacts with the big, New York publishers, but I do what I can with the small presses.
Yeah, well, that's some work that everyone, I think, can be grateful for, because it's what the small presses are publishing that I think a lot of readers really gravitate toward, especially if they're looking for more innovative and unusual fiction that kind of is not, whatever you want to call it, commercial or typical, or what is commonly on the New York Times bestseller list or reviewed in the New York Times.
You're right. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, the big presses published people like, Gilbert Sorrentino and, Gaddis and all those people. But towards the end of their career, they had to go to small presses because they weren't welcome in New York anymore. And that was 20 years ago. And nowadays, the big five, as they call them, if they can't sell at least 5,000 copies of a book, they're not even going to look at it. And, a lot of these small press publications, they might be fantastic books, but they're only going to sell, 1,000 at best, So it's great that there's so many small presses have arisen in the last 20 years, aided by all the, do-it-self publishing platforms that are available now. So they've really, small presses have really come to the rescue of literature and translations, especially. The big New York publishers aren't interested in those unless they're, the latest Swedish mystery novel or something that sold 50,000 copies in the Scandinavia, that sort of thing. So so I'm glad to help out with little I do, and hats off to the small presses.
Well, let's get into the book a little bit. One of the essays in Last Time Around is entitled William Gaddis and Russian Literature. And I think that you're considered the foremost Gaddis expert. And I learned a lot in this essay. I had no idea about the connection between Gaddis and the Russians. I was thrilled to read that Gaddis's favorite author was Dostoevsky, and probably even more thrilled because so few people know of this novel, but his favorite novel is Goncharov's Oblomov, which I adore.
Oh, do you?
So I wanted to ask what your thoughts on Oblomov are and whether you agree with Gaddis on its greatness.
Oh, it's been so many years since I read it that I don't know if I had anything interesting to say about it, but it's not your typical novel, and there's something about the humor. Gaddis is known as a serious novelist, but his own writing is very funny, and he regarded himself almost as a humorist. And you get that in Oblomov, and I think it was that, and just the quirky characters, and it's not your typical anxiety-driven novel like Dostoevsky's or the great historical panoramas of Tolstoy or anything. It's kind of a quirky, weird novel, and like I said, I only read it once, and I enjoyed it, but I can't remember enough about it. It's the same reason he liked Gogol's Dead Souls, which is another quirky Russian novel. And it's funny that most people associate Gaddis with the postmodernists and all those, but his heart was really in 19th century Russian novels, as I point out in that essay. I'll have to reread that again. You got me thinking about that. I need to reread that Gocharov novel again.
Yeah, it's a great one. I think you're absolutely right in that it doesn't have the same type of existential terror that a lot of Dostoevsky's characters seem to inhabit, but there is something similar. And with Gogol, too, I think this kind of, I don't even know what you'd call it, like high-pitched hysteria that the characters all seem to, I think to our modern ear at least, be like overreacting to things. Like everything seems like a cause for kind of running around and being, very dramatic about something.
Yeah, and even though they're about quirky characters, both of them are dealing with, they exemplify certain cultural problems going on in Russia at that time, or the Ukraine, or whatever. And, so they are like a lightning rod for larger social issues. And, and I know that intensity. I reread Crime and Punishment just a couple of months ago, and man, everybody's on edge. Everyone's going crazy at the drop of a hat, and just at each other and flying at each other. That's the verb that they like to use, and ranting. That shows up. All these people are like crazy, but
right.
It's amazing. And then, of course, the country at that time was going through some moving away from the slave system. What do they call them? Serfs. Getting away from the serf and all the problems they're having, all that. So, you're right. There's very intense characters, and that too appealed to Gaddis. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the comedy that Gaddis appreciated, and I know that from reading your work that you are also fond of comedic novels or novels with a sense of humor. And I wonder what you say to people that might dismiss humor in a novel because that somehow negates the importance of a work.
I would say I don't want to know you. I don't know. It's we've all read very solemn, grim novels that are about important social issues, and I'm bored to death by those kind of things. I don't know. A sense of humor is a sense of rebellion. It's a sense of humor shows that you can put things in perspective. You can see the funny side of things. I don't mean in a laugh way, but the whole, what did Balzac call it? The human comedy. I mean, we are all living in a human comedy, in one sense, or Dante's Divine Comedy. And I live for that. I mean, anyone could write a serious, novel about people undergoing hardships and all that. But try writing a really funny novel and get people to laugh. That's much harder, and it's a shame that it's downplayed. And in fact, I mentioned in my new book the fact that Tom Robbins never quite got the acclaim that he deserves because he was seen as a comic novelist, and
right.
And yet his artistry is just first rate. I mean, he is a better writer than most writers, period. And yet, because he was funny and kind of hippie-ish and all that, he got dismissed. Same with Richard Brautigan, and a lot of Stanley Elkin is another favorite of mine, and I think it's a big mistake. It's much harder to be. Who was it said that dying is easy, comedy is hard, and that's true. That's what P.G. Wodehouse is one of my favorite novelists because his books are so well put together, and the artistry is there, but because he was a comic novelist, that artistry gets overlooked, and that's what I liked about Gaddis and John Barth, Pynchon, of course. All of my favorite writers are humorous not humorists, but have a sense of humor. Sometimes it's very dark, sardonic, but like Robert Coover's sense of humor. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but I like books that have some of it. It's not always there. There's no laughs, for example, in Proust. For example, I don't remember. Miss Mackintosh. Are there any humorous bits? Well, not always. So there are exceptions, but some of the writers I don't really care. The major ones, like Thomas Mann, has always been a little too deep for me. Not deep, too serious. Or Theodore Dreiser, or some of those kind of people. But I like the comedy, so I'll die on that hill.
Yeah, I think there's some tragic pathos to the character of Miss Mackintosh, especially when she's revealed, to be other than what she is. But I agree with your point about artistry, and that takes me to one of the essays in this collection is about the nonfiction of an author that I'm not familiar with, but you made me buy another book. It's the nonfiction of W.N. Spackman, and you discuss his premise that critics since Plato have misplaced their focus on content of a work rather than its aesthetics. So why do you think that style and artistry doesn't get more appreciation, and more, even if someone doesn't quite like it, we just, in all of the reviews these days, we just seem to be so focused on the content and not the style of the work.
Yeah, well, that's the easy part. If someone says, "What's a book?" You say, "What's a book about?" You can easily give a plot summary. But if you ask someone, "What's the style like?" they have to stop and think and say, "Okay, well, it's a little casual, or it's very formal, or it's this or that. That takes you have to pay closer attention to the language and the diction. What kind of what different registers of language are they operating on? And that's takes a little more insight. You have to be a little more patient. And some people who just read for pleasure don't want to take that time. They may, as they're reading, they may realize that it's kind of fun to read or reads quickly or whatever, or maybe ponderous. But they're in it for the story, and I can't blame them. That's read for whatever reason you want. But to pick out the artistry, why an author chose this word rather than another. If you got a choice between dusk, twilight, sundown, sunset, there's 4 different words all mean the same. Why does an author pick one and not the others? Well, a good author will tell you why, for cadence or for the tone or whatever. And it requires you to slow down and notice those kind of things. And most people, either don't care or don't, aren't that interested. And some writers don't really have much style. I mean, I mentioned Theodore Dreiser a little while ago. He writes just straight prose that you could read in the newspaper. The more stylish ones, and W.M. Spackman certainly is a very stylish writer and funny. They take more time over these things. Flaubert has that famous bit about searching for le mot juste, the right word for a sentence. Or Joyce one time he told somebody he spent all afternoon writing this one 7-word sentence. And his friend asked him, "Oh, you're looking for the le mot juste?" He said, "No, I had the words. I just needed to write the right order, get them in the right order." And when you're reading Ulysses, it's like every word is pinpointed exactly where it should be, and you can tell. I mean, that's what I mean by artistry, and that's what Spackman meant, and Nabokov said. Nabokov said your first reading of a novel doesn't count. It's for the story. You find out what's going on, who's doing what, and all that. It's your second reading where you start paying attention to the language and the cadence and the structure and things like that. In other words, the artistry. And that takes an eye. You have to develop a sensitivity to that sort of thing, and that, Spackman says, is what professors should be teaching their students in classes, not just discussing whether Hamlet was right to kill himself or not. The plot level stuff. It's instead to look at the actual words that Shakespeare wrote and how clever they were and how perfect they are. Again, for book reviewers, it's really tricky because you've only got 800 words to convey what a novel is about, so you rely on the plot and maybe you throw in a sentence or two about the style, but you don't have much room for that. But that's what it comes out. That's what separates literature from just fiction. And fiction is fine. I'm not knocking it, but if you want to write capital L literature, that's where you spend all the time with the artistry.
Yeah. Well, you've written that Spackman preferred Chekhov to Tolstoy, prefers Henry Green to Henry James. So I take it that he might not be in total agreement with you on what I perceive as your admiration for the maximalist novel. And you've even got a great essay in my back pages about maximalism in the context of the novel Adam Buenos Aires by Leopoldo Marechal. And you write, maximalists place the emphasis not so much on a character's actions as minimalists do, as on the language describing those actions. And as you say, that language sometimes hogs the stage. So what do you think, I guess this is a continuation of our question about criticism should be focused on artistry. Is that mostly what you're looking for in a maximalist novel as well, that kind of the language hogging the stage?
Yeah, well, I think Spackman, again, it's the emphasis on the language rather than the plot or what characters are doing. So I don't see that much of a contradiction. And of course, Spackman, I don't know if you know, he wrote very thin novels. So, and I love them. So it's not. I have no prejudice against small novels. But again, it's the language hogs the stage. The language is more important than the plot. Is basically what I was saying in that other one, and I think that it's consistent with what Spackman was saying too. That it's not the story, it's not the big theme or whatever the novel is about. It's the language, and I think that's kind of but to get to your other question, yeah, that's what I look for in the novels I read myself. I mean, I like big novels, but I also like big novels that have real style to them, and so in my mind, it all kind of works out. Maybe it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, no, I think it does, and I think I'm the same way. There's all kinds of things you can call it, like the systems novel, and other descriptors that are used for big novels. But I have to say that there are some novels that are considered systems novels that I just don't think have enough artistry to sustain me for hundreds and hundreds of pages.
Can you give an example? I mean, I will, for example, and a lot of people love Don DeLillo, who definitely writes what they call systems novels, but I've never quite got excited about his novels. I admire him, and in fact, I even met him once. He's a nice guy, but his language is a little too flat for me, and there's not much of a sense of humor there. Is that sort of what you mean?
It is. I was thinking of Underworld, specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
As
That's
like
what I was thinking of.
A big systems novel. But it's been a while since I've read it, and I hope that this won't offend, but do you consider Infinite Jest to have a great amount of artistry?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Talk about your attention to language and getting every word straight. I wrote an essay about the first draft of Infinite Jest. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was in my previous book. And I saw the manuscript that David wrote, and he shared with me. And every single page was just covered with little changes, all word changes and stuff. And then he wasn't concerned about big themes or anything. He wanted to get every word just right and just scratching out one word, replacing another one, moving this one over here, and all that. So he was very interested in that. Now, the curious thing about him is the language often seems kind of slack and kind of too casual, but those sentences sometimes go on for a long time, and if you look at them really carefully, they really are very cleverly put together. And then the structure too. I mean, he had apparently a more mathematical structure in mind with the first draft, and his publisher made him cut it back a bit, so he lost a little bit of that structure. But no, he was very, very concerned with artistry, and it may not appear. Okay, go ahead.
The things that I recall about that novel, and it's been more than a decade since I looked at it. So I recall that the dialogue was very fine. There was a lot of funny parts to it, but the thing that I took away was it was mainly a book about ideas, and I didn't at any time really feel like I was falling in love with a sentence or the sentences. But
oh, really? Okay. Well,
yeah, but I mean, that's just me. I think that we do agree probably 90% of the time, though, on the kind of stylistic things that we're interested in, and that we find really great in novels, like a Miss Mackintosh, where the language just it almost overwhelms. It's so it's so it's just so much. There's just a profusion of words when anyone else would have cut it down to, something much, much less, but it just kind of goes on.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much plot to that novel. It's all language, and that's what pulls you in. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. What do you, getting back to this issue of style and kind of the need for what I think we probably agree, the desire or need for more people that are writing about books to talk about artistry and style. I don't know how much you follow all the writing that's going on various Substacks now, which seems to have, in a lot of ways, taken over the lack of publications that are devoting space to book reviews. It's really appalling how the book pages just keep disappearing before our very eyes. But are there any online journals or print journals or publications that you particularly look to when you're trying to learn about books?
Not really. I totally agree that all the best criticism has shifted online now and away from the book supplements. But I don't really follow it that much. There's one guy I really like, Tom LeClaire, who I think is maybe the best literary critic in America today. He likes the same kind of authors I do. He has a Substack which I read occasionally. And then there's a YouTube channel called Leaf by Leaf. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Chris Villa. He's fantastic. Yeah. So, but aside from those two, I don't spend much time there. Partly just because it's any time spent there is time taken away from reading, and I'd rather read literature than read about it, which sounds contradictory since I am a literary critic myself. But I only got so much time, especially since I like long novels. You need long periods of time to read those things, and I'd rather read books than read online criticism. But I've seen, some really smart stuff out there. But even that, a lot of the things I see address cultural issues and stuff. I don't know how often any online critic will stop and look at one sentence and examine the placement of the adjectives or stylistic matters. Maybe I'm missing them, but I think even they are more concerned with the larger social issues and identity politics and all that kind of stuff. But that's, again, I don't read much of that, so I could be missing some good stuff.
Yeah, it is a shame that we seem to, I have and still do less often now pitch reviews to different publications, and people really do want a hook. Editors want to see, like, okay, you want to talk about this old novel? Well, tell us why we should care today about this novel. Yeah. Rather than, I'd much rather get nerdy about about the language used in the book.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I don't go pitching reviews anymore, but I love going nerdy about the language. And you're right; they want some kind of, how does this old novel speak to today's issues? That kind of stuff. And I don't care about that. I mean, you can, a good novel will always have some kind of social relevance, I guess. But it's it's the language, the wit, the surprises. That's what I go for, and I don't know if that's as popular as it used to be, or I don't know, it's never that popular. But so that's why I don't read much criticism anymore.
Well, being a lover of collecting your thoughts on what books are the books to read, I thought that your little 2-page essay on the American canon, that was very much catnip for me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
And you mentioned, and we talked a little bit previously, about the fact that writers are still, from time to time, sending you their novels to take a look at and to comment on. You do break this canon into four sections, actually. Before 1900, 1900 and 1950, 1950 to 2000, and then after 2000. And particularly looking for a minute at the after 2000 authors that you list, and appropriately, that's your smallest list so far, because we're only 26 years into this century. But I wondered if you notice any trends or differences on the novels that you're seeing today that people are sending you versus maybe what you were looking at or for when you were working at Dalkey or reading in the in the 1980s or 90s.
Yeah, there is a difference. I can't put my finger on it, but I do try to read a lot of contemporary fiction. And whenever I hear about something that sounds like my kind of book, I'll buy it and read it, and I think, it's okay, but it's not quite what I love, the big giant novels of the 70s and 80s and all that. In fact, the ones I list in my little chart there are mostly ones that kind of hark back to that style. There's something, I don't know, about modern writers that are contemporary young writers that something missing for me anyway, or something. I can't put my finger on it. I was thinking that you might ask me this, and I'll read something and it'll be, this is okay, but it's not really great. Let me think. I don't know how else to put that. It's their interests have moved on. I'm failing to put my finger on it. It's like some people say that modern movies today aren't as good as they were 50 years ago. And why? Who knows? The whole aesthetic has changed a lot. And I don't know, the kind of really erudite, sardonic novels that I really like don't seem to be written very often anymore. There's some exceptions, but and some are very clever. There's some young female writers I like Madeline Cash, Honor Levy. They write these really kind of quirky short stories that are very hip and based in online culture and all that, which are clever and funny, but all that. But otherwise, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but the fiction has changed in some way, which is perfectly understandable. That Victorian novels were left behind for the modernists, and the modernists moved into postmodern and all that. So that's how literature evolves. But there's not too many new writers that really appeal to me, and I'm sorry, I'm just drawing a blank. I can't quite explain why. It's like a lot of music. I love, I grew up with the 60s rock music and the 70s progressive stuff, and that's the kind of stuff I love. And the rock music today is just, it's okay, but it's just not the same, where's the modern Beatles or Bob Dylan or, Procol Harum or any of the weird groups I used to like back then? They may be out there, but I can't find them. You see that? You know what I mean? I mean, there's something, I won't say thin or about the modern fiction, but there's something just missing for me. Yeah,
it's hard to articulate, but I do think I know what you mean. Two of the writers, just to take it for example here, that you mention in your after the 2000s are Volman and Danilevsky, and they're both still writing. Danilevsky just had a novel, Tom's Crossing, which I really admire. Volman, of course, we're all waiting for Table of Fortune, which we still hope will come out this year, but seems that the publication date keeps being delayed.
I've noticed that.
Which happens. Yeah, it happens, I think, especially with big novels, because getting on the print line for a big novel is can be challenging with the printers. But I kind of agree with you. It's I do think both of those writers are very fine writers. I've only read Europe Central by Volman. I've not read the Seven Dreams series, both of which you mentioned in this canon. And I mentioned Tom's Crossing too. I like what both of them do. I guess it feels innovative to me, and stylistic, but I guess stylistic in kind of a different way than a Marguerite Young or dare I say, I think you probably hate this author because you probably, I'm guessing, consider him too self-serious, but Henry James, who I just kind of eat up his prose.
No, yeah, I took a seminar in James back in graduate school, and I think maybe that's the problem. I kind of overdosed. Reading him in portions is fine, but no, I love The Ambassadors. I think is a masterpiece. I really love that, and I admire him, but it's kind of heavy going sometimes. But even those two authors you mentioned, Danielewski and Volman, they're in, their 50s or 60s now, so they're not exactly young writers. And I think even them, they've kind of fallen off a little. I think Volman's early stuff is much better than his last couple books. And even, I read Tom's Crossing, but I didn't like that as much as, the House of Leaves, and even that, what's it called, that series he started?
That's Familiar.
Yeah, The Familiar. Yeah, I was really hoping to see where that was going. But as far as again younger than that, I have to look at that list I came up with. I don't think any of them are under 30 or under 40, are they? And that's what I mean. I'm not seeing much of the new generation of writers that really interest me.
Yeah. Are you optimistic about the future of the novel?
It will continue, obviously, but not the kind of novel I enjoyed. I don't think. I mean, when I first read The Recognitions, it was a paradigm shift in my life. Or the same first time I read Darkhamville's Cat by Alexander Theroux. I mean, these were like major life events for me. And Infinite Jest. I mean, these were. I haven't had that kind of experience in ages. And I kind of don't think I ever will. So the novel will continue, but it will be going on without me, and that's fine, because, like I said, the novel. Well, the novel is novel. It means new. It'll always be revigorating itself and turning into new things, going into new areas, and that's fine, And I know there's still, so huge books are still being written. Like I said, some guy is mailing me one in a few weeks. So some people are still writing those kind of things, and I'll continue following them. And who knows? Well,
I guess there's at least you have the sense of anticipation that perhaps some life-transforming big novel will land at your door if there's still people that have the ambition and the talent to put together a sprawling artistic novel.
Yeah, I just hope there are readers out there for that. That's the other thing, as well as I, how the readership is declining every year, and especially for big, brainy, erudite novels. I mean, most people don't have the background anymore to appreciate those kind of books and pick up all the literary allusions and all that. That's becoming a very small audience, and I don't see that improving. I mean, especially the way our culture is going seems to be. Well, I'll stop right there. It's not leading towards greater intellectual heavens, I think. So it'll be a small audience, like the audience we have for poetry nowadays. Very small, but very select, and I think that's where the artistic novel that I like is. I think that's probably where it's going to go. And then popular fiction will keep going the way it is. Romances and dinosaur sex novels and stuff, all these crazy things that are coming out these days. So we'll see, or we won't see.
Yeah.
I won't be around that much longer, but it'll go on.
I guess I do still see on Instagram, the cult of the big novel, but it's a little disturbing to me because oftentimes, and it's the nature of Instagram, people are posting big, stacks of huge novels, and I'm just wondering, are you really reading those, and if you are you spending the time to really, get some appreciation and satisfaction rather than just saying, oh yeah, I read that, and on to the next one. We're lacking a certain degree of patience, I think, to sit with a really long and not easy to read novel for the weeks or months it takes to really get it.
Yeah, it's a cliche to say this, but there's so many distractions nowadays that there weren't 50 years ago when I was starting to read literature. I mean, back then there's only 4 or 5 TV channels and, no internet, no YouTube, none of that kind of stuff. So it's harder to find the time, I guess, but that's for readers today, especially for long books. But that's what you have to do. You have to find the time. You have to make the time and, put down the iPhone and turn off the computer and spend time with those big books. And I don't know how many people have that kind of patience anymore. They weren't raised under that culture the way I was, for example, where everyone in my generation read books, and spent a lot of time reading books too. That's the culture has changed, so that's going to be different and trickier. Well,
before I sound like an old grump, asking you to, bemoan with me that they don't do it like they used to anymore. You were game to play a little bit of round robin with me, just having me throw out some authors, and maybe you can give me an impression. And some of these I know that you've mentioned in some of your stuff, and others I don't recall seeing you mention. So if you haven't read anything by them or have no opinion, that's cool too.
Okay. Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Lucy Ellman.
I started what's it called? Ducksworth something.
Newburyport.
Yeah. I read about the first 100 pages or so, and I kind of got bored. So that's all I read. She wrote an earlier novel, which I read. I can't remember the title, but I thought that was interesting. It had an index at the end, I believe. And I like weird things like that when books have footnotes or indexes or whatever. But that's all I have to say about that.
What about Susanna Clark? She wrote the book Mr. Strange and Dr. Norwell, or maybe I got those names.
I remember when that came out, and I picked it up, I brought it home, and I never got around to it. But it looked impressive, but I just never got around to it. Is she still writing?
That's because she came out with a novel. It wasn't just, but called Piranesi, and it's I haven't seen anything since. It came out maybe 6 years ago.
Okay.
But the Strange and Norrell book has a lot of footnotes, so you might like that.
Yeah, I should give that a look. Yeah.
Okay. What about the proponent of Purple Prose, Paul West.
Oh, I like him a lot. I've read quite a few of his books. I met him once. Yeah, I like Paul West a lot. Yeah.
How about?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Partly because of the Purple Prose. He's another stylist who really spent time with his writing, and he was a good critic too. He wrote several volumes of criticism that's quite sharp.
I'm not familiar with his criticism. Well, except for the famous New York Times article singing the praises of Purple Prose, and I couldn't agree with him more. But okay, how about Henry Roth, who wrote Call It Sleep?
Yeah, I started reading that, or maybe I read all of it. I remember hearing, the great rediscovery of it, a while back. I thought it was okay. It's pretty dreary subject matter, and the style was kind of dreary too. And I know he went on to write quite a few other things, but no, I never got past that Call It Sleep.
How about Louis Auchincloss?
I never read one of his books. No opinion.
Okay. How about Thomas Wolfe? Not the Bonfire of the Vanities Thomas Wolfe, but the Look Homeward Angel Thomas Wolfe.
Oh, yeah, I loved him. I read that, and what's the other big one? Time in the River or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved both of those, and I always meant to read more of him, but no, there's a stylist for you. Boy, he's wonderful, and big maximalist prose and all that, yeah, I really liked him a lot.
Did you watch the movie about he and his editor, Max Perkins?
No, I don't think I saw that.
It's quite good.
Okay, I'll look for that.
This might be unfair because this is a Brit, but John Cowper Powys, he wrote a Glastonbury romance, Wolf Solvent.
You would not believe this, but right now, today, I'm right in the middle of Wolf Solvent. Yeah, I'm reading it. I've heard about him for ages, and I finally got around to reading one of his novels. I'm halfway through the Wolf Solvent novel right now, and enjoying it. Yeah, he's something else, isn't he? And I've had his other novels recommended to me, so yeah, no, I admire him. Yeah.
The only one, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm in the midst of one as well. I'm in the midst of a Glastonbury romance, and I adore it.
Oh, that's huge, isn't it? Isn't it like 1,000 pages or something?
I don't know that it's that big in my edition, anyway. But
okay.
But yeah, I think he's something special.
Yeah, I agree.
How about Peter Rushforth? Do you know this author? He's a Brit, I think, too. Pinkerton's Sister. No,
never heard of him.
Okay. His first novel was called Kindergarten. I listened to a podcast called Backlisted, and they were talking about him.
Cool.
How about, have you ever read Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast?
Oh, yeah. Geez, what a book. I read that whole, was it trilogy or 4 books in it?
Yes.
Yeah, I read the whole thing, and wow, that's that's just being transported into a weird alternative universe, and yeah, I really, really liked it. I don't usually write like fantasy novels, or I don't know if you'd call it that, but that was an amazing achievement. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, same. I can't believe that Harry Potter is so big and this doesn't seem to be read anymore, because I think people that do read it or do know of it, especially in the UK, read it at a much younger age. But at 57, I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So,
oh, good for you. Yeah, it's really definitely worth reading. Yeah.
What about James Elkins? He's got this series. I've known him for about 10 years now. He
he sent me the manuscript of that big series a while back, and I was trying to place it with Zerogram, my publisher. But yeah, I've read part of it in manuscript. I've read the 2 volumes have been printed so far, and looking forward to the 3rd. And we've corresponded a little bit. Yeah, he's really smart, and really, I'm really enjoying the books. Yeah, I would warmly recommend him.
Yeah, he's been on the show before, and I'm really anticipating with pleasure talking to him about the 3rd one, which comes out in September. I've got a galley of it, but haven't read it yet. But I think his project here is just lights out. It's go ahead.
And you notice it's not being published by one of the big New York publishers, is it? It's a small press out in L.A. So they don't, which tells you, that's all you need to know about the current publishing scene. That it takes someone else, a small press, to bring out something like that these days. Yeah,
and 3 cheers to Unnamed Press, which is the L.A. press that you're talking about, for sticking with him, through the whole project for all 5 books. And of course, in the second, there's really no order to the first 3 books apparently, but the second published book, A Short History of Annalise, that whole long section about her neuroticism of writing a long novel and what is a long book. I love that part.
All the long books that she reads, which is just crazy. I mean, nobody could read that in 10 lifetimes, but yeah, it's almost ridiculously over the top. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that section.
Yeah. Here's other across the sea people. Have you read any Karl Ove Knausgaard? My Struggle. Okay, and he's got that new constellation of books that the first one published was The Morning Star.
Yeah, no, I've heard about them, but they didn't. It sounded more like just a diary, or I don't know. I've heard about them, but no, I haven't read them. No.
Have you read Jan Fosse, the Nobel Prize winner? I guess 3 years ago. He's got this 7-part book called Septology.
I've heard of it, but no, I haven't read that.
You might like that, actually, I think.
Okay, I'll make a note here. I've got a pencil. Yeah, I've like I said, I've seen it, but I just never got around to it.
Well, I'm going to end this round robin with one that I know you've got an opinion about, and he is on my to-do list. I already have the book, thanks to you, but and I've looked at it, but I haven't really, kind of started it. Is Joseph McElroy, and the book that I'm talking about that I very much want to read soon is Women and Men.
Yeah, boy, that's. It's an amazing achievement, but it doesn't have. I was talking earlier about how important sense of humor is to me, and he doesn't really have that. He's it's pretty, it's very cerebral and very erudite, and that particular book is it's a wonderful picture of New York in the 1970s, big cast and all that. It's something I admire more than enjoyed, even though I wrote a really positive review of it that's in my previous collection. And he's so smart. I met him once, and he's one of these guys who just radiates intelligence, like a light bulb or something. It's just really smart, well-read, scientifically informed guy, and wonderful guy. But yeah, it's bit cerebral. Well, you like Henry James, so if you're used to that kind of prose, so you'll probably enjoy it. But yeah, I've read virtually everything he's written, and I hope he has one more novel in him. That's the other thing. What is he, in his 90s now or so? So He's quite a writer. Yeah, he doesn't, like I said, doesn't have the sense of humor that I look for in writers, but in every other aspect, he's a remarkable writer.
Well, I'm going to lie and ask one more because
Okay.
for some reason, your description of his writing prompts me to want to know what you think of Making of the Americans by Gertrude Stein. Do you find that to have a sense of humor?
No, I didn't, and I have to confess I only read the first couple hundred pages of it. We reprinted it at Dalkey Archive, and mostly because of its reputation, and it was out of print, and it certainly deserves to be back in print. I mean, no matter what you think of it, it's a landmark work, so that's why we did it. I said I read the first couple hundred pages, and I thought, okay, I see what she's doing, but it didn't really appeal to me, to be honest. And that's, what else have I read? I read some of her other works, which are okay, but yeah, for some reason I just never clicked with her. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I've read some of that novel. Making, I think I always get it wrong. Is it Making of the Americans or Making of the American? I think recall.
It's plural, but I think it's just Making of Americans.
Okay, that's what I'm getting wrong. No article. I kind of thought maybe she was trying to be funny, but maybe I was reading something in the prose that wasn't there.
Yeah, well, it could be a very dry humor. Yeah, repeating things over and over again with little variations, and yeah, it could be. Yeah, but maybe it gets funnier as it goes on. I don't know, but it just wasn't quite for me. I felt the same way about that Lucy Ellman book you mentioned earlier. It's just too repetitious of too many ordinary things, and now she was a real stylist, so you can bet that she chose her words carefully. She knew what she was doing. It's not that she was just rambling or anything, but it was a stylistic choice that just didn't quite work for me.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, we'll end it there, not because I couldn't just go on and on and on and look at my bookshelves as we're talking and ask you about all the books that I haven't read that I'm sure you probably have, and I'd be so thrilled to get your opinion of them. But I just want to express my appreciation for everything that you do and have done for the literary community, and I'm really just so glad that you wrote this latest book, because I love reading about what you've read and what you think about what you've read, and I think that you pretty much just write about those things that you like and admire, and that's intentional. And I couldn't think of a better proselytizer for the importance of literature in our lives than you. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's very flattering. And I do try to keep it positive. I'm not one of these critics who likes to tear books down. I tend to write about books that I really like, and I try to convey that enthusiasm to other people.
Yeah. Okay, we'll end it there. Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, goodbye.